Hello, everyone, and welcome to Intercultural Concierge. We are going to have another episode with another guest this week. I'm your host, Serkan, and with me, my co host, Jordan Vinikoor. Hello, Jordan.
Hey guys, how are you doing tonight?
And
Tonight? I don't even know what time it is.
yeah, it doesn't matter what time you guys watch us, please have a nice day. In this episode, if you remember from our last episode, we had our first guest, Wanapa. Do you know Wanapa, Grace?
Yes, I do. I know her quite well, I guess, at some point.
So we had her as our first podcast guest, and we decided, depending on the outcome, depending on her performance, we will have another guest or not. So we decided to have you as our second guest. So Jordan met you maybe years before I met you, so he knows much more about you than I do. I will let Jordan, talk about you and introduce you.
Mhm. Yeah, so I want to introduce Grace properly. So Grace Minjung Lee, you're Korean, and Grace, I have to say, is one of the coolest, one of the nicest, one of the most down to earth and funny people that I've met in my entire life. We met
Wow.
originally through Toastmasters. I'm not joking. Through Toastmasters, and I went out drinking with her and a group of friends. That was kind of our original time hanging out. Do you remember that evening, Grace?
Yes, how can I forget?
It was very fun. And then eventually she joined my Toastmasters club. Shout out Roastmasters. Then she started dating a good friend of mine, Robert Bob from the club. Maybe we'll have him on the podcast someday. But she eventually he moved to Hong Kong, and then she pursued her career also in Hong Kong with Robert Bob. And anyways, she's someone who is you're a third culture kid, somebody who spends a large majority or a large part of your life outside of the country of your like original birth. So we think she's going to be an exceptional guest for us today, and so we're very honored to have you with us. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. Actually, this is my first time being on a podcast and slash YouTube, I guess. And
We're
it's great to start with the people that I know. It will be a more comfortable vibe, I hope. And I hope I can share something insightful for everyone. And I just hope we can all have a good time.
Thank you.
All right, then let's start with a quick question to Grace. So, Grace, I know that you have like an intercultural background and experience as well. You have lived in multiple countries, you have worked in multiple countries. So, could you briefly, talk about your different experiences in different countries? Where you lived in, where did you work in, something like that.
Well, I'm Korean, but my parents actually we immigrated to the U.S. when I was 3, and well, in some point in my life, I guess English was my first mother tongue at in a certain period, and I lived in the States for about 10 years in LA mostly, and we came back to Korea, and I spent my entire life in Korea ever since then. So it's I actually think it's a quite interesting background because when I came back to Korea, my Korean was really bad. So I wasn't able to like communicate well within school, and I did really bad in school too. So in some point, my mother tongue that used to be in English became kind of a talent. So I became the super kid who speaks English very well at school, and
Yeah.
that actually led me to my current um, career as well. I think at some point. So right now, I worked in the media channels for a very long time in the advertising industry in Korea for 10 years. And now, as Jordan said, I'm pursuing my career in Hong Kong as in the advertisement industry for about 4 years now. So almost 15 in the advertisement industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess
Okay.
that's it.
Okay.
So what was it? So I guess this is our like little interview opportunity. So was it? So like when you transitioned back to Korea, so you said you
Yeah.
were how old at the time?
I think I was 14, yeah.
So like, so
Right.
what were some of the like big challenges that you faced? Like besides, I guess language barrier, huge one.
But I think the biggest thing was definitely the language barrier for sure. And plus, my dad at that time, he wanted me to actually kind of toughen up. So instead of sending me to like international schools, like most parents will do after 10 years of living in the States, he
Mm,
decided to put me into public school in Korea. And back in the days, there were not a lot of people who actually traveled overseas. And plus, my hometown is not Seoul. So we went to a more not openly city at that time in Gwangju. So I was really considered to be more like an alien. Or they were asking me a bunch of questions like, oh, in the US, do you eat rice or bread? These stuff were constantly coming up. And then,
that's a very Korean question.
yeah, I mean, I was really shocked that I got that question
Like,
every single
we're
day.
just both.
And then when I told people I ate rice in the US, and they would be really shocked too back
Oh
then.
my God.
Exactly. And of course, I had a really weird Korean accent because my English, my Korean was really bad. So uh, people had some difficulties understanding what I was trying to say. And also, of course, because I didn't really take the full like 10-year proper education in the Korea system, I didn't know anything about the history or whatsoever, right? So to be very honest, I had a lot of private tutors to
Yeah,
just
yeah,
keep
yeah,
up with the school materials in general.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, okay. And so like you had a career in Korea that like you went through the rest of your schooling, had like a job there, and then you transitioned very successfully to Hong Kong, which is like a really like a kind of international Asian hub
Yes.
over there. So you have like a really a lot to share with us in terms of like talking about like the different aspects of culture in different places in the world. Um, so I guess so. Well, I want to set the table, I guess, for our discussion to say that like we live in a globalized age right now, a global business world,
Yes.
information age, and all three of us have lived and worked in a foreign country. And like in the modern experience, we can see TikToks from people all around the world. I mean, it's never been easier to like have clients or coworkers or work for companies from other cultures, like this pandemic period aside. Um, and like these days, so we're the intercultural concierge. So
Mm.
like obviously it's we want to kind of help out our audience and give them some information. And like obviously in this world that we exist, it's advantageous to be more familiar with other cultures, hence this podcast. But as it relates to like the workplace itself, there's certainly like workplace norms, workplace values, expectations, which differ significantly depending on where you work and who you're working with, etc. I've experienced those things. I'm sure you have as well. And like I think the goal, like if we are more familiar with those things, then we can be like more perceptive. We can have better like relationships with people at work, be more collaborative with people from different cultures, be more flexible communicators. That's something I've had to learn a lot.
Mm.
Yeah, etc. And like when we talk about comparing,
Mm.
excuse me, when we talk about comparing cultures, we can, I guess, kind of think there's a whole field of scholarship. This podcast is not really like
Mm.
a very
Mm.
academic and scholarship based podcast, but like I guess when we think about culture, we can think about like individualistic versus collective. When
Mm.
it comes to work, we can think about like a work-life balance. That's something which I
Yeah.
think differs between cultures. There's different kind of power structures like vertical versus horizontal hierarchy. There's
Mm.
different communication patterns. There's different like I guess pay or overtime pay, those kinds of things like that. So
Mm.
I think we'll just have this be a free-flowing conversation about like the
Mm.
different cultures that we're familiar with, and then
Mm.
I don't know where it's going to go. So but we always let ladies first, ladies or guests first, and in this case you're both. So why don't you um, share with us some cultural differences that you've perceived between different countries?
Okay, so to just let you understand what type of companies I've been actually been working with, the past 10 years in Korea, I worked in a broadcast company for a year and a half in the news team. So, and also the next company I worked with was a newspaper company. It was actually one of the top three in Korea as well. So, by the name wise and uh, to be a very typical Asian, my parents were really happy that I went to were working in those companies because they're very well known and big. So all of the like company support and everything was pretty much guaranteed because Korea has a really good system with that labor law sector, what I think. So it was a very secure job and everything was quite well. But because I spent because these two companies were mostly based on the media side, in Korea, in the medias are actually considered to be really super conservative. So considering, I guess the most well known will be, Samsung or LG. They're kind of conservative, but not really. They're more trying to be globalized as well. So you do have some room. But if you work in extremely like heavily like Korea focused media channels, it's very conservative.
By the
So
way, could you quickly talk about how Samsung and LG is also a media company? Like our
oh,
international
sure, I
viewers
would.
will probably guess Samsung as a smartphone manufacturer,
No,
Electronics.
yeah, yeah. So
electronics
Samsung
company.
and LG are not a media channel, but consider like I was just using that as an example of one of the most well-known Korean companies. That's why. But of course, those two companies are more globalized, so they won't be that extreme and compare what I've experienced. I just wanted to make that clear because I wouldn't
But
say that, yeah, all Korean
so
companies conservative. It's not that true. That's not true.
so like go into more detail. Like what do you mean by conservative?
So definitely, of course, because of the language and the culture, Korea has a hierarchy system for sure. And as a conservative, will be something like maybe the basic stuff, like the clothes that you wear. Of course, if there are certain clothes that you shouldn't wear in work in general,
So such
as
as
knowledge. Yeah.
like
Oh, okay. One
anything
example.
which
One
yeah
example. When
give
I first came to Hong Kong, I was really shocked because sometimes in Hong Kong, I think Hong Kong is more like very open, and at the same time, digital agency sector in the business are quite more, I guess, more open than the other industry for sure. But when I first came to Hong Kong, and because Hong Kong is quite summery all year long, uh, the
yeah right.
my colleagues are wearing like off the shoulder like tops and really short like shorts that will be totally unacceptable within Korea. Not, I don't think that even Samsung will allow that. That like it was quite surprising. Just the
Like
yeah, it's
the
just
amount
something
of skin exposure.
exactly. But the skin exposure that sometimes Korea will not. A lot of Korean companies, including mine,
Which part of the
is
body, upper part or lower part? Because I know it is.
actually both. Because sometimes you'll see people wearing like tank tops.
Okay, that was
Okay, but I've been to Hong Kong. It's a horridly humid country. It's oppressive. So I think like unless people dress like that, they might die.
Yeah, but it's but at the same time here no one really cares. That's the thing. But
no. The reason I'm
Korea,
asking is
yeah.
different because what I noticed in Korea is that like if you are showing your legs all you want, no one cares that much. But if you start showing your shoulder bones or like what do you
Your
call it?
décolletage. They call it décolletage.
Yes, the moment you show that, people go crazy. So it's like it's
Yeah,
the
exactly.
opposite.
That's the point. For me, since I was used to that part for a long time. So when I saw someone in the office wearing showing their shoulders, that was kind of a culture shock because from my experience, it could be quite scandalous in the company if I was in Korea for sure. So that's will be one of the things.
So
So
like we are.
Okay, so
yeah.
I want to jump in. I want to jump in with one.
Mm.
Okay, so I want like I think that one of the so as an American working in Korea, so many things stood out to me. But like one of the huge ones, and this relates to education, work, etc., is like the work-life balance, right?
Mm.
Like in this case, like it's like work is an accepted excuse to neglect the other parts of your life, but the other parts of your life are not an excuse to neglect work. And
Yeah.
it's not that different in the US. We don't have very much vacation time, um, but still, like, the work-life balance stuff that I experienced in Korea, like, there's just expectations of like working overtime. It's kind
Mm,
of like, as long as the boss or the supervisor is there working, you can't leave, because otherwise,
Yeah.
like, you look bad. And so basically, the job itself becomes like the most important thing, which is different from the US, where it's like, when it says like, okay, my contract says I finish at 3:30, I'm out, like, see you later. Like, wait, can we sit? Nope, see you later. Like, everyone's just out the door at exactly the specified time.
yeah. So I guess
So, like,
that's definitely the
is there a difference
consuming
between
part.
Korea and Hong Kong as far as that goes?
I mean, no, Hong Kong is more, I guess, because Hong Kong has been influenced by the British culture for a long time. So they don't really have that. It's kind of different for sure. I do see the good parts about Hong Kong, and I do miss about certain parts that I worked in Korea for sure. So I guess for here, at least, what I think is because it's quite individual. So in Korea, because we work as a team, right? And no matter how some point it could be unfair, but sometimes because we look as a team effort, so there will be some people who's better in performance and some might not, but still you'll be just identified in a whole package. So definitely you have that extra bond with each other because you have to work so closely with each other as well. In Hong Kong, everyone has their own very straight target. So it's very straightforward. So if you don't hit the target, then you didn't achieve your work, right? So I think it's a different style, but sometimes I kind of miss the old days because we get so pressured with your own personal target and like, um, but um, but definitely because you are being identified as an individual and you are being like uh, evaluated with your results, the payout is very straightforward too. So, you won't really, sometimes in Korea, because it's a team effort, um, to try to make it everything neutralized. Uh, Sometimes the management will try to be nice and say 50-50-50 to everyone or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Allocate the percentage quite evenly. But here, it's not like it. So
Like
uh,
you, whatever you like earned is
exactly.
what you get.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I guess there's good points and bad points at some point, but yeah, that's the thing, except the outfit part.
So
And
you're not showing very much skin right now. So I guess,
no, because
but it's the middle of but it's still the summer. So
no, I'm still a very conservative Korean.
Serkan, chime in.
What about like there's something I'm like interested in terms of, let's say, gender equality or inequalities. Like, do you think in Hong Kong or in Korean work environment there are gender inequalities?
Um, no, I actually don't think so because when I joined the current company right now, and if you even look at the numbers of female and male in our company, we have more females, I think for sure. And of course, it depends on a certain area. If it's more IT sector, I think there will be more guys too. But um, but for Korea, I don't think there is because with so that's the thing. Even though I worked for a conservative company in Korea, there was no like gender issues for sure. Because the good point
Hmm.
is, I think Korea has a very, of course, there will be different types of industries, but at least Korea is trying to constantly make everything equal within the gender wise, and uh, like giving extra benefits or because Korea has to do military service too, right? So there are certain parts that are trying to be equalized. So I think I didn't really experience any gender issues within both countries at all.
All right.
Maybe I was lucky. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just asking
Serkan,
for your personal experience. So if you haven't,
Mm.
noticed anything, then you haven't.
well, so Serkan, I've been to Hong Kong. I've been to Korea. I've worked there. But the place I know nothing about as it relates to like work and culture is your home country. So please like shed a little light on that.
I would say we are in between the West and the East. So, for example, when you talked about work time, that if it's 5 p.m., you clock out, you go home. This is mostly true. But it's also true that there is like a team spirit or company spirit that if the overall work is not done, if the boss himself is working, or your friend, your colleagues are still working on something, it is, not rare to say someone staying in the office and helping them out, or just continue to work. Or it's not uncommon to have a micromanaging boss or like a bad boss giving you something to do at the last minute. It's like 4:45. You have 15 minutes to go home. Your boss comes in and you're like, okay, here's like a stack of paperwork you have to do before you go. So you cannot go at 5 p.m.
I
So
think that's intentional. That must be intentional.
it happens, but these are like individual things. Like, for example, if something like that happens, that person stays or have to stay, for example, 1 more hour to finish, but others just leave. They say, it sucks to be you. I wish I could help, but see you tomorrow, and people would leave. Like, it is more common to hang out after work. Like after 5 p.m., if people still want to discuss or do something, they would just go for a tea, for a coffee, for a beer, hang out, chill, relax before heading home, and that will be it. There is no overtime stuff like in Korea that I heard about, know about, is just people don't leave if their team leader doesn't leave. They're
That's
like
kind of true.
I finish everything that I have to do, but I have to stay because my boss or my team leader is not going home, so I do. Same thing is not true in Turkey. Definitely, it's like more individualistic at that point.
I actually thought about that, why that might happen, because of course, looking back, I definitely, tried to seek whether my boss is leaving early or not. To just try to just leave work at time. At least you'll stay about 30 minutes longer, maybe. But I think because it's a team effort, which, as I mentioned before, uh, like if everyone's working on there's some kind of project together, and of course, even though you're finished with your side, if the other people in your team didn't finish, then it kind of makes you feel there's a vibe. It kind of makes you feel kind of guilty at some point to just leave early.
Just
It
be
makes you
like,
feel bad. Yeah, so that's why, even though people will say when they leave the office, they'll say, as to be just polite, they say, "Oh, I'll go first. I'm sorry," or something like that. Just
they kind of announce it and
yeah, yeah,
apologize.
yeah. Like kind of, it's not like really meaning apologizing, but it's just trying to make that a little bit polite. So definitely there is kind of something things like that for sure in Korea, and plus the more. I mean, sometimes I guess it depends all the work style, but definitely my bosses. So there's a thing I always thought, because I had this name tag attached to me every single year. I all the
In
time. I wouldn't say
in
year.
Korea,
Yeah, in
in
Korea.
Korea.
So yeah, so it's like, so because because everyone knows I lived in the States for during my childhood, they still consider that I had a lot of myself is quite Americanized, I guess. But I don't think that makes sense, because I lived longer than I lived longer in Korea than U.S. Right? I just stayed there in my like really childhood years, so I don't
Are
really remember.
you considered a kyopo?
No, I don't. I can't be. They won't allow me.
So kyopo
The
is
Kyopo
like
community
I
will
guess a
not
foreign.
allow me to be a Kyopo.
Sounds like a
Uh,
foreign citizen, I guess, kind of, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gyopa has to be a foreign national with Korean ancestry.
Ah,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
So
So
if I
since you
stayed
were born in
longer,
Korea, you're definitely not.
yeah, if I stayed longer, maybe. But
Okay.
I'm definitely not in that category. But I don't think I've been always in the middle, because I lived in Korea long enough. But anyway, so so anything that is not normally happens in the Korean culture, I guess, let's say I just, for an example, because I get this a lot when I was in Korea. So if I wear something more bright, a brighter color, then it could be outstanding from everyone else. And though people will say, my boss will say, oh, because you lived in the US so long. That's the reason. And I actually kind of use that from time to time, and like, intentionally try to, because when I try to leave work early, like it's not leaving work early, just on time. I'll like people will just, oh, because she's Americanized. Like I'll kind of use that at some point. Even
You
though something
should,
big, yeah.
like if you can use that foreigner card or like foreign background card, you should. You shouldn't, just stay because you are Korean by DNA. You can say, hey, I'm culturally different.
You have a loophole, exploit it. There's one big like individualism versus like collectivism difference which I experienced in Korea, which was like hueshik, which is
Yeah.
like the company dinner.
Yeah.
It's
and
not
basically,
company
like,
dinner. No, like the translation is totally wrong. Like if you say company dinner, so Jordan, if I told you I'm going to a
Help me
company
out,
dinner,
please.
what would you understand? If I said,
I would say you're going to dinner with your coworkers.
like, for example, in Turkey, it's even a bit different. A company dinner is rare. It doesn't happen all the time. It happens once
And
a month.
also paid
Something
by
like
paid by your employer.
Yeah, paid by the company.
Dinner with coworkers, paid by the employer.
It's like a company event. It's literally a big
it's
company.
Not an event. It's not an event.
It's more considered to be like a team building.
So I would say in Turkey, it's considered like a company event. If you said company dinner, it's a company event that you have to go and everything is paid. You are there to, socialize with your co-workers. But it is rare. It doesn't happen all the time.
Okay, exactly. But that's, I think, the big difference is like in Korea, it kind of happens semi-regularly. Like so.
Yeah,
even when
sometimes,
so depending on who you are, it could happen. Like it's depending on your job, it could like happen once a week or more. Who knows? But like when I was working at the middle school, my first job ever in Korea, we had like a quarterly hueshik in which every single teacher in the school went to this great barbecue restaurant and everybody drank. I mean, actually, the female teachers wanted to escape as quickly as possible. The male teachers like kind of stuck around and went to the icha, the second round. But like in general, there was like this weird, like pouring of the soju. The kind of like top people in the school were kind of paying homage to each other, that kind of thing. But even in the English department, sometimes, so like the head of the English department would say like, we're having an English department hueshik tonight, and I knew all of us were like, oh God, we don't want to, like, actually, like I'd much rather go home than do this, but okay, I guess we have to like put the effort in to try and like hang out together and develop the relationship and spend time together. And even though it was kind of painful in the moment, I do, coming from like the individualistic American society, I do kind of appreciate at least that there's like the emphasis to kind of like build those relationships and like try, like there is that kind of I don't know, there's something about the like trying like enforcement of building those relationships, which I think is better than just kind of everybody just 3 o'clock happens, everyone just splits.
Yeah.
Like people don't have those relationships in the U.S.
I do agree, because the Korean word hueshik actually is in Chinese, so it's Chinese character. So basically, it does mean company dinner. By translation, like exact.
Like
but
the reason I said
point,
is
Jordan. 1 point, Jordan. 1 point,
but,
Jordan.
like,
but the
I don't know.
company dinner, the definition, it will be, if I have to interpret it, it will be more like a team building kind of dinner or lunch or something, a meal, basically, because having a meal together in Korea is a big culture, because you're sharing food and you actually learn a lot from each other. And also, a lot of times, people, of course, you meet of course you're at work all day with each other, but at the same time, if you go to the company dinner, like the team building dinner, you'll learn actually more about the company, because the boss
Right.
will share you some kind of details in the past, how our company ran. And I did really appreciate those times, because it gave me a better understanding how our company is heading towards. And sometimes it gets more relaxing after futures, for sure. Um, of course, at the same time, because this is a very important part in the Korean culture, most of the companies actually have a budget for that. So that's why I guess you had a quarterly dinner as well, because
I loved it.
yeah,
I
I
drank
mean,
so
it's
much. I just got
basically
drunk.
free
I just
food
got drunk
with
on
like
soju.
good meals, and you don't really go to bad places in general. So with
No.
like premium high level meat and stuff. So
Yeah.
uh but I think it's definitely a more like trying to build up that extra effort, because more if you're during the office hours, you talk about pretty much work all the time, but
Right.
still
Right. Exactly.
you need
People like,
for the
yeah.
extra bond,
Right.
and if you have those type of dinners when kind of people are relaxed, then you'll understand the parts that you never understood about your boss's decision, why he had to make that decision, and it
Mm.
becomes more kind of understanding environment at some point. So I think I do actually really like question in general. It's not because I'm Korean, but I actually like it. I do feel like I learned a lot how to be a manager in some point, to deal with that, because everyone's a human, right? And my boss,
Wait, what?
even my boss, before he became a manager as well, he wasn't just like me, right? He used to be a junior as well. So he like kind of taught me how to be a more better manager in some point during those dinners. That's the point.
Mm.
It's more like a mentor vibe too. So yeah, I kind of like those kind of dinners in general. Mm.
What about the hueshiks that you have to go every day or every 2 days? Like these are the ones that people complain, not the quarterly ones or not the
But
once a year one.
but I think in this is like a specific case in which like someone is maybe in
Mm.
sales and they're like
Yeah,
working with clients, and so
yeah.
basically like they would have to wine and dine the clients, and basically wining and dining the clients and trying to build relationships with them, and like includes going out for dinner and drinking, like
Mm.
probably more than one should.
I think, yeah, that's basically the company dinner doesn't always need to be within the company's employees itself. It's more likely related to clients too. So um, basically, I think it's the same idea with kind of slightly different, because a lot of people in Korea, when they do business, they actually play golf a lot.
Mm.
And
Or but
because
what do they call golfing in Korea though?
just play golf. It's just pretty much,
I
it's
thought it's called rounding.
rounding. Oh yeah, yeah. Rounding. I forgot about that word. But anyway, because golf and like these dinners, if you have a regular meeting with your client, they won't really have more than an hour to just spend with you during the day, right? So if you have those regular like dinners, and if you go rounding, like playing golf, you'll have at least 3 hours to spend time with that person. And you'll
Mm.
be able to know more about what his real agenda is in that business, and also you'll be able to understand what his preferences are. So I think it's a different type of like sales tactic, but still it's quite useful, which I think it makes sense. It's because everyone's human in general.
Yeah, we don't
Okay.
have that. We just go to a restaurant. Like we don't have golf courses. Like we do have, but it is not a common practice. Like only maybe 10 people that's totally wrong probably, but it's like 10 people play golf in Turkey. So we just if someone wants to wine and dine, they just wine and dine. As you go to a restaurant, you have a company or like business meal, a business dinner together.
The golf culture in Korea is quite big, because once you're actually hit your 30s, everyone will tell you have to learn how to play golf. Like if you see Instagram, all of my friends, they all are in their golf outfits. So I don't play golf, and I never cared, but it's kind
Because
of a
you're not
norm.
30 yet.
But this is how what I was quite interested to learn. I actually asked my boss when I came to Hong Kong if Hong Kong had that culture with try to play golf with their clients, right? Hong Kong doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of
So
course, Hong Kong is more.
what do they do
Yeah.
to build the client relationship?
You wine and dine. Yeah, but golf is not. Yeah, not in that sector.
But there's not a lot of golf courses, like, I mean, compared to the United States where there's golf courses everywhere. Like Korea doesn't have a lot of golf courses, so it is really kind of considered like a luxury or
Yes.
business kind of
Yeah.
activity as well. And I know, yeah, it's like a lot of people just practice their golf skills hugely compared to actually going out on the course itself. But we are going to take a break there. And we'll be back in a few minutes. Today we're sponsored by, we have to invent a fake sponsor.
You don't
until
have
we
to
actually
invent.
have a
We are
real
not
sponsor.
sponsored by anyone yet. We are just
All
taking
right,
a short.
we're sponsored by Jim Beam, a very pleasant alcohol, and actually the best drink you get, the best whiskey to mix with is Diet Coke. So let me recommend that to everybody. It's a very underappreciated beverage. Order it in a bar. You don't have to have the like syrupy, sugary taste of regular Coke. Jack Coke, no. So we are sponsored by them until we have real sponsors, and we'll be back with you in just a moment. Welcome back. Gosh, it was great to be away, and it's great to be back with you guys. So what we're going to do is our next segment. We don't have a name for the segment yet. Tales from the Crypt. We had that idea, but it's no good. But anyways, we're each going to tell a story about our experience kind of encountering the kind of cross-cultural difference in the workplace. So we don't have a specific order. So who would like to go first?
I will go first. So I've been in Korea for 2 years now, and I got the chance to work with many different companies. But I usually worked as like a contractor. I was not like a permanent office worker. So my work was always were sometimes remote, sometimes at the premises. And what I found out that is, I will give you one specific example. So I'm working with a small institute, and I'm designing a curriculum for them. Let's say a business English curriculum, so that they can use it for their students in the future. How I started was very different. I had this idea. It was at like a demo stage, was like work in progress. So I approached them as, "Hey, let's do it together, and then let's see how it goes. Let's look at how well it performs, and then let's see if it's a viable path for you." And then that's how we started. And then we got into it. Everything is going well. But then I got this, how to put it, authoritarian or authoritative way of handling things. I started to get orders. Like they started ordering me around, even though this was like a purely solo project that I was designing for them in collaboration. And I was not expecting
Can
that.
you give an example, like such as do this, do that?
Like such as they started to micromanage me. They were like, "Hey, when this is going to be done? Hey, did you finish this yet? Hey, or hey, what's the progress on this, that?" And I'm like, "I will deliver the finished curriculum every Sunday, corresponding week." And I was expecting them to, let me work on my pace, let me do my thing on my pace, and then, because this is just again like a group project, but that was not the case. They wanted to be involved at each step. They wanted to add things, remove things, and I understand, because they want to help, they want to contribute. But the way they handled was just like a Korean office. Even though it was, again, we're not in an like office environment, that's how they approached it. So it's, even though as a contractor or as like a project manager for that curriculum design project, I felt was, reporting to a boss, or I was reporting to my team leader all the time. And the moment I tried to step out of that, there was a kind of resistance. They didn't like that. Even though they didn't say it out loud, I could sense, I could feel that in their eyes, in their gestures, that they didn't like that.
And they said it.
Yeah, like they were not pleased with it.
Wait, can you, like, what do you mean step out of that? Can you like?
So there was a moment when they
You said no.
No, I wasn't that, let's say, not aggressive, but I didn't confront them a lot. I will give you an example. They asked me to change a part because they believed it is better that way. And then it required me to, one, do maybe 10 hours of extra work to even accomplish that. And also, it was against everything I had learned and everything I studied, academically speaking, linguistically speaking. So it was like a bad idea, bad suggestion. So I had to, one, put their idea down, and then also tell them that I'm not going to do that amount of work because I don't want to. Like,
So you told them, sorry, but no.
in a way, I said, I tried to be polite. Again, you always have to be polite as a human being. I said, because of these reasons, I explained the reasons to them. This is not the best way to proceed with that. And also, I am extremely busy with my other projects and other ideas, so I cannot allocate the required amount of time to pursue that. So I said no, but I didn't want to say no in a way that, hey, I'm not going to do what you said. Like, I'm not your worker. I'm not an office worker. I'm not going to obey you. I just didn't say that. But the response was like this Korean tilt, this Korean cultural tilt. They tilt their heads 45 degrees, and then you immediately understand it. Like, they don't like it. They don't say it, but you can see from the gesture they don't like that. And like, this project was like 3 months project. This was not a small project. So even at the end, the results, for example, were very, very positive. Everyone involved loved the project, loved the idea, and they immediately wanted more of it. They're like, okay, this is great. We want more. Let's do it. But when we came to that step, for example, if something like this happened in Turkey, people would immediately assume the next part, the continuation would be like we have to make a deal, we have to make an agreement. This part was like a demo. We have to talk about the money, we have to talk about payment, how the payment is going to handled. But it was a big no. They were expecting me to do the same amount of work for free again. And I was like, is that cultural? Is that the way people see things in Korea? So if you say that you are doing something for free, they expect it to be free forever. Like, that was something I quite didn't understand. Like, in for example, in Turkey, let's say Jordan is a business partner of mine, and I did a favor to him, I did something for free. He will be ashamed to ask the same thing again for free. Like, asking people to do something for free is a shameful act in Turkey. Like, you will be ashamed to ask someone to do anything for free. They would always
Wait,
try
but you did profit from the production of the curriculum, didn't you?
I didn't profit. I only profit.
But I thought you taught the curriculum.
I taught it, so that's not the part of, let's say, the design. For example, someone else could have taught it. Jordan could have taught the classes.
So basically, what you're saying is, like, I'm going to develop a course for free, and you pay me to teach it.
So,
and then then you expected them to pay. So when it comes around for the next one, then like they're expecting that you develop the second curriculum for free, and they'll also pay you to teach it again, but they're not paying you for the curriculum development cost, is what you're saying.
like the point they miss is like they are actually paying me to create something for them to earn, because when you put it that way, people will imagine I am the only person getting money out of it. Actually,
Right. Good
they
point.
they made twice the money that I made out of it.
So
So
they're
they,
like they're earning from the curriculum, and they're earning
yeah,
from you. Like they're earning from you teaching the curriculum.
yes. So that's why I assumed after seeing that, hey, we are earning money from this. We earned, you know, I'm just giving a number, like $10 million from this. So it is profitable.
Sounds high. It sounds a bit high.
Like $10,000, 10 million Korean won. I'm used to Korean won right now, so that's why I said 10 million. So if you are going to ask the same person to do the same thing again, it's, for example, in Turkey, you try to compensate them. You try to, okay, this is a great idea. You don't even wait for them to give you a number. You automatically give, okay, we will do this, we will give you this. Or if you don't have the money, if you're a poor company, you try to compensate them somehow. You give an option. I didn't see that. It was like, I'm not sure at this point this is like a cultural difference, or this is just like an individual, very unique example. So maybe someone, a Korean person or someone who worked with another Korean company in like a similar circumstance would have a better idea or could
Well,
comment on this.
fortunately, we have a Korean person with us. Do you have any thoughts on the matter?
I think I understand what you just shared, and I think I understand where the Korean company actually came from too. So if you look at the monies, of course you make profit, and all businesses basically starts from that target, right?
Mhm.
But when it comes to finance, and because there should be a little different level of people who will approve that, then always in the end the head management will ask, oh, you did this for free already, why are you doing this, why do you have to give us money? It's a different type of conversation. And if it was free at the first place, then it should be free at the second part as well, because they don't really think that, because if this was the pre kind of planned and discussed to have this is only for free at this first batch,
Yeah.
and you'll have to pay me the next batch for a certain amount. If that has been previously discussed, then that will be in the system when they actually reported this to their head management. But when this not has been discussed, I'm not sure, but if this has not been discussed in pre,
yeah, it was not.
Then it's I think the CEO who whatsoever, if they got the report, they will ask, why do we have to?
I was in contact with CEO all the time, so everything was between me and CEO. Like, I approached the CEO. I told him that I have a plan that will make you money. I will do it for free, and then I didn't discuss anything about what comes afterwards. It was
Because
all
in the
my
end of the
cultural
day,
understanding at that point. It will be like there's like a mutual understanding that
no.
they are getting free money from me from doing nothing, so they should feel obliged.
They want more free money. They want more.
No, but
Yeah.
if you think about
Exactly,
the
they
idea
wanted more
that,
free money. That was it.
because yeah, of course, but if you think about the idea, in the end, they don't really know or care how long it took for you to create the curriculum in general.
Yeah, like they didn't.
So
Exactly.
Actually, I think no teachers in the world get paid for the development time of their lessons. They get paid for teaching them.
Yeah, teachers don't. Curriculum development specialists like me do. I'm not a teacher. I am a curriculum development specialist.
Yeah, maybe that's also one point. Maybe the CEO didn't really understand the difference between a curriculum developer and a teacher.
Yeah, like from further discussions, that's true. That's
curriculums, right?
From further discussions, I also understood they actually couldn't differentiate what is an English teacher, what is a curriculum developer, what is a linguist. For them, they didn't have a distinct different nuances. They were like one.
Okay, so maybe in Turkey they have like a more sensitive business sense or something like that.
Yeah.
Great.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Grace, so tell us if you have a story about like experiencing some cross-cultural difference. in the workplace?
I would actually like to share something more personal that make me happy.
Go for it.
So as I mentioned in a previous conversation, I worked for a very conservative Korean media. So all of the managers, their managers are super Korean, like conservative ajashis, which is kind of the old guys. So they're the generation who will try to seek whether they could go home early or not because their boss didn't go home, didn't finish work yet. So they'll stay longer and longer and maybe do the dinner, 회식, the team dinner, like maybe 3 to 5 per week, which I can see that happening. And so, I mean, they basically learned it from that. So even though they're kind of the new generation, their habit is still in that sector. But anyway, aligning with that, so in Korea, I think it's still a lot of companies, when people try to apply for their holiday leaves, they feel sorry for it. Like they'll try to, because it's your legal right. You have holidays in your contract, and it's not given by your boss. It's given by the company itself. So it's yours. So this is the part I never understood. And I always had to ask, of course, you have to get the manager's approval, but it's not more like you don't feel sorry for it, right? I'm sorry, I'm going on my actual vacation, right? So I remember this time. So when I think it's better now, but when I was working in that company, it was kind of a huge no-no to actually put your holidays right in front of the national holidays, which will give you extra like
which
right?
is like the most strategic use of your time, basically.
I mean, if you want to go on a holiday, you intend to go far away, so you need a little bit, maximum 2 weeks, right, to enjoy the culture and everything, and including all the flighting time. So back when I was in my company, no one did that because it was a huge no-no in the culture itself, and no one had the actual gut to actually ask for it. And my boss was one of the well-known guys who will definitely say no and make an issue about it for sure. And just to let you know, this happened when he was when he was like 38 or something, and I think he's like 6 or 7 years older than me, so he's not super old, but his mind, the way he got educated and like learned from all of his previous managers were pretty much very hard, old school. Anyway, so I booked my ticket for a holiday in early February, and my holiday that I planned was in August. So I did 6 months of planning how to say it. How to ask approval for my extra holiday. I'm putting the 5 days in front of the Korean national holiday so I can enjoy 2 weeks. Oh my God, during those 6 months, trying to figure out an excuse was a headache because I was constantly like brainstorming with my colleagues as well. How should I say this? How should I say this? So
it has to be like this. I have to. Like, oh God, I really didn't want to. I did not want to, but I had to.
And then because he will ask why do you have to go for 2 weeks? So in the end, I hated to make this excuse, but I had nothing else because basically, so the excuse I made, which is kind of true. So that period was my first time to meet my future husband's family. So it was before we got married. And considering the age I was in Korea, it was quite late already to get married.
So it's very important that you do so.
I literally threw myself out and said, "Oh, I'm trying to meet my maybe fiance's family. So they're living in the States, so I need 2 weeks." I ended up using that. So, and then he said, "Oh yeah, you should get married, so it's okay." The funny part, I was the first person who ever did that in the entire company's history. The next year, right next year, my boss did the same thing too. Oh my God. So it was just so funny. But So basically, Korea, in some companies, it's really difficult to just try to get maybe 3-day holiday just up front, because there are so many people like trying to figure out what other people's are doing, what my boss think it will be approved or not and stuff like that. But when I came to Hong Kong, no one asked me to. So I I don't
You don't
even,
have to. You don't have to
yeah,
justify your vacation.
yeah,
You take it
exactly.
when you want it.
Yeah, exactly. So the perfect example is that I was really busy the entire year. I ended up using my entire holiday for a whole month. And that's how I got and like was able to travel Antarctica as well. If that didn't happen, I would never actually go. I wouldn't have the time to go. So definitely appreciate that for sure. Considering like a person who like me was trying to figure out when I could just get the approval or not. But I think that taught me a good lesson, because I swore to myself, if I ever have a team and if anyone has to ask for like holiday approval, I will never question it. And considering all my teammates are Koreans, because I manage the Korean team, they always end up saying, "Oh, Grace, I'm so sorry, but I have to. Can I leave on holiday for certain days?" And like, you had that plan already. Why are you being sorry for me? You can just go. You don't need to tell me. Just apply it and it's done. And they really appreciate that. And I feel like I'm not giving them the holiday. It's kind of weird that they feel always sorry for like
Yeah,
asking.
right. Like that is like it's kind of like leaning on people not to take their holiday at an inconvenient or like
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense, I guess.
it's. I mean, in the end, we're trying to find being professional, but also try to be happy personally too, right? I think the like if you work for like a 9 to 6 uh, office, the best part is the holiday. So why would you take
Yeah,
away from that? It's
like
just
yeah,
so bad.
you have some days off that you should be using like a chessboard. You're using them strategically to
Yeah,
enjoy your
exactly.
life the rest of the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I thought it was quite extremely different when I came to Hong Kong for sure.
Mm, cool. All right, I'll give you guys mine. I haven't written or prepared anything, but my first year ever in Korea, my first experience teaching was at an all girls middle school, and I mean, it was like probably more than 10 years ago, so I was like more handsome, more slender, and so I mean, it was a wonderful experience. I would go into classrooms. They treated me like Brad Pitt. The girls would scream like ah! Anytime I entered the classroom. Everywhere I walked, I was like kind of like a celebrity around the school. All the other teachers liked me and they were interested in talking to me or trying to talk to me, except for like one specific relationship that I had with the head of the English department, and she was also my co-teacher for I guess like 1/3 of my classes. Her name was Sylvia. I think she's not going to be watching this, so I'll just call her Sylvia. Um, and like the thing is, she had like a very indirect communication style. Some might say passive aggressive, but like because it was my first time ever in Korea, I didn't really understand like the hierarchical nature of like the Korean workplace, and I didn't understand like the indirect signals in the Korean workplace. So like there was a day where she had to miss the class for like some conference or something, and so I asked like another co-teacher, like, would you mind coming with me to the class to help explain about an upcoming test? And then apparently like it was a major issue that I hadn't explained, that I hadn't asked Sylvia's permission in advance. That I'd kind of like usurped her authority or gone around her. And so like this really angered her, and she basically like kind of stormed out of the office and like slammed the door, and I guess passive aggressively kind of communicating to me that she was very upset. I later understood the issue, etc., etc. After that, after the first half of the year, this co-teacher, the one I had asked to come, she quit, which meant that I was like teaching classes, 2/3 of my classes alone, which is actually a violation of like Korean educational law. like no foreign English teacher is supposed to be in the classroom alone with the students. But they said that like they were working to find like a Korean teacher, but whether or not they were is another question. So, I mean, I had a teaching license before like I went to Korea, and based on my experience in the United States, I felt like I was kind of an independent teacher, right? Like you've got English classes, you go teach them. But the thing is, so like one day, one of my classes, only maybe less than half of the students came to the class. And so I said like, where are the rest of the students? And I couldn't really understand their answer, except, so I wrote down all the names of the students who had come to the class. And then I looked at the roster and I wrote down all the names of the students who didn't come to the class. And then I figured like, okay, I'm an independent teacher. I'm like working on my own and I want to solve this problem by myself. So I went up to their homeroom teacher. I figured out the classroom and I handed her the piece of paper that I had written down all the students' names. And I said, all right, these students did not come to my class. I want to know why. And I like gave her the paper. Her English probably was not very good. She's not an English teacher. Then I went back to the office and I sat down next to Sylvia, you know, who I'd had repeated arguments with over time. And sure enough, the call comes in from this homeroom teacher and she talks to Sylvia and she explains, I guess, some of the situation. And Sylvia is absolutely mortified because number one, I didn't tell her about the situation. And so after the school day was over, she basically screamed at me for like an hour, basically saying that I should not have gone like around her. And basically she's the head of the English department. And how could and she was my like co-teacher. So how could I not like tell her the problem that I had with the class? And so basically she looked horrible in front of like a teacher, like a homeroom teacher from another department, that she as the English department chair had no idea kind of what was happening with the native English speaker like within her own department. So she like screamed at me for a very long time, and it was a very up and down relationship. But yeah, that was an experience where I really learned about like the indirectness of communication, and I understood like the hierarchical nature of maybe the workplace that I should have gone through her. I should have told her the problem. But because I'm from like the United States, where each teacher is kind of like an independent entity, you know, I guess I didn't realize that.
I can see that coming.
It was horrible. Oh. Serkan's adjusting his noise. I'll remember. So we stayed in the office and we argued and yelled at each other for probably 1 hour.
Oh my God.
It was not our first argument or yelling session. And there was also a moksanim, like a school minister.
This is a Christian
in the
school,
office.
I guess.
It was a private school.
Yeah.
So it was me
Christian
and her
private.
just arguing at each other back and forth for like 1 hour. And like there's a moksanim silently sitting at his desk. And I was like, I can't take this anymore. I was like, I said like the thing which drove me insane was I said like, all right, I understand the problem. I will never do that again. Like, et cetera, et cetera. And she said, that's not good enough. And I said like, okay. I was like, this, like I said all this. I said this. I said, I'm out. Like, I've had enough. I said, have a good night, Moksanim. And he said, then I left and he said, nah. I just like slammed the door. No, it's still bad. What'd you do? I can still hear you, but not very loud. Yeah.
Not
no,
really.
It's not. No, sorry. All right. Yeah, I guess more or less. But so Grace, do you have any comment on my story? Like, do you think this is like typical situation, or?
I assume that your co-teacher has been maybe publicly ashamed by the head management or principal, and that's why she got more pissed. I do see that like might have actually happened. So also maybe she wanted to actually have that reporting system online and try to show everyone that she has more control on you. But I don't know. I'm not a teacher, so I just think because Korea, I mean, schools are more conservative, right? So I think she's pretty much. I wonder how old she was too. How the age is important.
The thing is, she was like a divorced mid-40s.
Oh.
So
I hate to make a prejudice. Oh.
She had some kind of like insecurities, I think.
Okay.
And I think she had some sensitivities as far as like the perception of her in the school.
See, that explains a lot. I hate to say this, but that explains a lot.
It was like a bad marriage. Like we were married together for that year, you know, like we had no alternative other than to like work together, but it was just like a really tough fit, but we still had to continue working together. So but I learned so much that year, and I learned like, you know, like in Korean there's an expression like a one-man han saram, like a kind of a rounded, like not a sharp-edged person. And I think when I went to Korea initially, I was more kind of direct. You know, she would say to me, like, Korea is an indirect communicating culture. So she would say like, yeah, maybe it's not a good idea. And like, because I was argumentative, I would say like, maybe it is. Like, if you're not sure, like then, you know.
Yeah,
but so
it's more like, I think the communication is trying to go more around the bush, you know, instead of trying to
it's
be
like
direct.
a gently communicating something instead of like too harshly. So
yeah.
Based
on trying to be extra polite as much as possible, even though the conclusion is the same. I mean, you know that better than me now.
I mean, I worked there for a long time, so I figured it out eventually. But anyways, so to respect Grace's time, who is actually calling us from the middle of her workday, we're going to wrap things up here. So thank you so much, Grace, for joining us. We really appreciated it. And we would love to invite you again in the future. Serkan, Silent Serkan, do you have anything to say?
Well, anyway, thank you for having me both. I really enjoyed the time. It was really nice to recap all of my past fun and dramatic situations and stories. I hope to join again with a different topic.
Cool. And
Yeah.
Now it's loud. Now it's too loud. Too loud. This is like a pop the trunk production where, you know, we just.
Yeah, I don't know what happened during the middle of and at the end of the production. I hope it didn't go off while I was, you know, telling my story, so I don't have to do a voiceover again. But something killed my mic, so I'm sorry. I am just using my backup mic.
I think we did make it through.
All right.
So anyways, thank you again, Grace. Thank you, Serkan.
Thank
you, audience, for enjoying this. And if you have any questions, please comment below in our YouTube video.
Also, share your own experiences in the comments down below. You know, tell us your stories about intercultural work experience.
Absolutely. And as always, we are your Intercultural
Concierge. Thanks for watching. See you.
Bye.